Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
Just then, someone knocked on Angela's door. She looked at it and went to open the door. Richard was standing outside. She crossed her arms and asked coolly, "What do you want?" Richard looked at her for a few moments with mixed feelings before saying calmly, "I have something for you. Get changed and come to the waiting room." Angela cocked her eyebrow. "You can give it to me here." "It's about your boyfriend," Richard told her. Angela's eyes shone, and something seemed to leap with joy in them. She looked at him expectantly. "Really? Did he call you?" Richard could not share her joy. Instead, he felt sad for her. Does she really love that B****? He didn't want to hurt her. She was the granddaughter of his grandfather's best friend after all. "Come in. Come in. Tell me more." She turned to the side and welcomed him into her room. Richard frowned. Does she have no concept of safety? "Are you sure your boyfriend really loves you?" Richard asked instead of going in. Angela smiled and she answered without missing a beat, "Of course." She sounded confident. Richard felt a little frustrated. She's beautiful, born to money, and lives in luxury. So why is she so stupid? That jerk's playing her like a fiddle, and she has no idea about it. Don't just look at me. Talk. Did my boyfriend call? Angela wondered why he was staring at her. No, Richard was about to leave. Angela closed the door and ran forward to block him. She spread her arms wide and told him, "I need your phone, Richard. I need to make a call." "No," Richard refused without hesitation. "Please, it's just a call. I'm desperate." She put her hands in a prayer and begged him. She wanted to know if Dexter had landed safely. "He's gonna be worried if he can't find me." Richard crossed his arms and put on a sterner look. No means no. Hey, that's just heartless. It's just a phone. It's not like lending it to me is going to kill you. 5 minutes, please? I'll pay you. Do you really have to be so stuck up about that? Angela was almost on her knees. She fluttered her eyelashes and started acting like a kid. Please, Mr. Lloyd? Pretty please?" Richard squinted. His face was still deadpan, and he refused to budge. Angela stopped acting and stared at his pockets. Her eyes glinted, and she smiled. "You're really handsome, actually. You're my cup of tea." She kept beguiling him as she slowly approached the man. Angela flicked her hair backward and started flirting with him. Richard frowned. He thought this was annoyingly amusing. More annoying than amusing, though. What is she trying to do? Angela held his arm and closed in on him. Richard tensed up, but then he felt her arm slithering into his pocket. He immediately held her hand and turned her arm behind her back, stopping her from stealing his phone. Ow, ow, ow. Let me go. Angela was caught red-handed, and a stab of pain came from her hand. Don't pull anything with me. He snorted and pushed her away. Angela rubbed her wrist and swung her arm around while shooting him an angry glare. So heartless. He stared at her, feeling frustrated. She couldn't have even gotten close if I had just been more careful. She almost got her hands on the phone. Richard reflected on himself and decided he would never let this happen again. I'll cut off all your contact with the outside world from this minute on. I'll get my men to protect your parents. You're going to stay here. He was going to leave again. Angela stared at him. She decided to stop pulling any tricks and pleaded, "I know you want me safe, Richard. Thank you, really, but I can't lose my boyfriend. Please, let me call him." I promise it won't take long. Richard stopped in his tracks. He took a deep breath, and he turned around slowly, as if he had made a decision. He took his phone out and handed it to her. Delighted, Angela went and took it from him. Thank you. She quickly called her boyfriend, waiting for him to pick up. Unbeknownst to her, Richard was staring at her, wondering if the decision he made was correct. Yes. The call went through, and Dexter picked it up. Angela heaved a sigh of relief. Dexter? It's me. Angela? Where are you? I couldn't get through to you. Dexter sounded really worried. Don't worry, I'm all right. I ran into some trouble, but I'll see you again soon. I'm sorry, Angela. I didn't want to hurt you. I know you're out of my league, so I pretended to date another girl so you'd leave me and find someone better, but I realized I still love you the most. She sat back down on the sofa and answered sweetly, It's all right. I understand. I don't mind. Richard could see that Dexter was trying to sweet-talk her even without hearing the conversation. And this dumb woman still believes him. She doesn't know his true colors. I love you, Angela, Dexter confessed lovingly. Okay. I know. I love you too. She smiled shyly, but then someone took the phone away. She quickly turned around to face Richard. Hey Dash. Richard clicked into the video his team member sent him, and he tossed the phone to the sofa. He said, Your boyfriend is AF * coy. He hooked up with a woman he just met right after he landed. He dates you for you. Wake the F * CK up. Angela's eyes widened, then she heard the conversation coming from her phone. It was Dexter's voice. You're the prettiest lady I've ever seen. Ever since I saw you back on the plane, I knew I'd be the happiest man on earth if I could have you. Is that so? Well, I'll be your date for the next few days then, but I need a place to stay. Oh, I can do that. I can do anything you want. Angela heard the sound of smooching. Oh, we can't do this here. Let's get a room. Angela froze. She picked up the phone with trembling hands, and she stared at the screen. Dexter walked into the elevator with a woman in his arms, and they started making out even before they got into the room. Angie shivered at the sight of that. She wanted to cry and scream, but she couldn't. All she felt was fury in her heart. Her eyes were filled with tears of rage, and she bit her lip hard. She stared at the screen. But what she saw tortured her soul. Richard looked at her calmly. I hope she'll snap out of it after she sees what happens next. Don't fall for him. He doesn't deserve her. Angela then saw Dexter take the woman into a room, while he went outside to take a call. The room was quiet, and the volume was at maximum. Angela could hear everything Dexter was saying. How many times do I have to tell you, Mom? Look at the big picture. I want everything. I'll give Angela's mother the money back. That old hag is a billionaire. I can just marry Angela and take over her parents' business. I'm not going to back out just like this. Don't worry. Angela can't live without me. She does everything I tell her to. I spent all my time making her fall for me. I know how much she loves me. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Talk to you later, Mom. I have something urgent to handle. Someone opened the door, and out came the woman in a bathrobe. She looked a little miffed that Dexter was still on the phone, and she pulled him. Looks like someone cares about a little call more than me. That's fake news, love. Dexter kissed and pushed her into the room. Angela put the phone down in fury. She covered her face, and she was trembling. She couldn't believe the man she deeply loved was only dating her for money. It was hard to believe that he was just pretending to be nice to her. Richard watched as tears fell through the cracks between her fingers and soaked into the sofa. He frowned. Cheering someone up was not his forte. He never did anything like that before, but still he wanted to say something to her. It's good that you saw through him. Open your eyes the next time you look for a boyfriend. Don't fall for the same tricks, he said. It didn't work too well. Angela was just crying quietly, but now she was wailing. She looked up and let her tears fall, ignoring the fact that there was someone else around. Richard looked at the tissue on the table. He went and took some for her. Angela took them from him and dabbed her eyes. She spoke through sobs, so it was all a lie. Everything he did for me was a lie. I thought he loved me more than Dad and Mom do, but he's just a liar. A liar. Angela felt like dying, but she felt fortunate that she saw through Dexter. She just couldn't accept that 2 years of her youth amounted to nothing in the end. Richard pulled a few more tissues and handed it to her. He bent over to take his phone, but then he felt Angela hold him. She buried her head in his chest and bawled like a kid. Richard froze. He spread his arms, but he couldn't push her away. Angela didn't mean to hug him. The pain was just too overwhelming, and she wanted someone to hug. She was grateful to Richard for showing her Dexter's true colors. He also went out of the way to tell her that too. I want to kill that be **starred. Angie cursed and thumped Richard's chest. She was too mad to realize what she just did. Richard was speechless. Hey, I'm not the guy who hurt you. Don't take it out on me. He refused a steady offer and took care of me when I was sick. He even cooked for me every day. I thought he was genuinely nice to me. Damn it. Angela finally snapped out of it. She was glad that Dexter agreed to never have sex with her until she was comfortable with it. All she lost was her time and nothing else. Richard held her shoulders and pushed her down onto the sofa. This is nothing to cry over. She wiped her tears away as she thanked him. Thanks for showing his true colors to me, Richard. Richard stood up. In that case, work with me and stop causing so much trouble. I need to use your phone again. She stood up. Her eyes were red, but the look in them was calm. Richard lent her his phone gladly this time, and she called Dexter again. Hello, Angela? What happened? Why did you hang up? I couldn't get through to you, he asked hurriedly. Richard's number was not open to the public, so nobody could call him. Angela took a deep breath and said coldly, Dad and Mom are right, Dexter. I'm out of your league. You're a dirty, disgusting scoundrel. Never show yourself in front of me again. I never want to see you. What are you talking about, Angela? Did your parents tell you something? I love you. I promise I won't fall for anyone else. Is that not enough? Dexter was starting to sound anxious and panicked. You won't fall for anyone else? Yeah, right. You hooked up with someone you just met on the plane. My mother paid you to leave me. She probably gave you millions, but you wanted to take everything they have. That's crossing the line. How did you know about that, Angela? No. She seduced me. It's not my fault. Dexter was panicking now. Either you give the money back, or I'll make you. Make your choice. You have 3 days, refuse, and I'll sue you, she warned him. Angela was finally starting to act like the rich lady she was after she snapped out of it. Dexter dropped his act at once and sneered. Your mother gave me the money, Angela. I won't give it back. You have no grounds to sue me. Oh, I'm sure my father can do something about that. And I know a lot of people who'd love to help my family. Either you give my mother the money back, or you're getting it, she threatened. You can't do this, Angela. My mother's sick. She needs the money. Can I have it for now? I'll pay you back, please. Scared, Dexter was making a last-ditch effort to scam some money. You have 3 days. Make your choice. She hung up and closed her eyes for a few moments. When she opened them again, they were gleaming brightly. She was no longer the woman controlled by love. Angela turned around and handed the phone back to Richard. Thank you. Richard squinted. He was surprised that she could become so tough and calm in mere moments, but he was happy for her. I hope you'll find that lipstick as soon as possible. Angela thought that the lipstick was the key item for this change in her life. She wouldn't have met Richard if it wasn't because of the lipstick, and she might have had her whole life ruined by Dexter. But now I'm saved. Richard left her room. He just remembered that he had some reports to attend to, so he went to the room where his team members were. Just when he was about to go inside, he heard his team members' discussion. She's only played like a fiddle because she thirsts for love. Her father's an official and her mother's a businesswoman. They don't have time for her. It's a blessing and a curse to be born to that family. Good thing we saved her in time and stopped that ** shoal from doing further damage. It's fate. She wouldn't have picked the lipstick up if she hadn't run into that burglar. I think even God doesn't want her to live her life in a lie. Trevor was keeping an eye on the surveillance camera footage, and he suddenly exclaimed, **T. Some underworld guys just smuggled themselves into the homeland. Richard came in as well, much to everyone's shock. Can you stop showing up all of a sudden? I want to know who they are, Richard ordered. Trevor tapped away on the keyboard and plugged some faces into the recognition system. Their details were shown a moment later. Highly dangerous individuals. Wanted worldwide. Richard frowned. He said, "Tell the dark web we've found the lipstick. See if that'll make them leave." I tried it, but they told us the thief installed a port identification system in the lipstick. They'll only give up if the lipstick's unsealed. So Miss Myers never opened the lipstick. Jared sighed. Trevor turned around and rolled his eyes. Are you stupid? She wouldn't have thrown it away if she opened it. Good thing she didn't, or the thief might have found out where the lipstick was right away. Maybe he would have located it before us and put Miss Myers and her family in danger, man with a scar on his forehead said. The man's name was Willie Josling. Trevor sighed. God just saved her again. I guess pretty ladies are always lucky. Trevor's eyes shone. Hey, so that means she's single. I have a chance at wooing her. Someone smacked the back of his head that someone said, "Do your job." Trevor was annoyed, but he said nothing. Since the guy who smacked his head was his captain. He puffed his cheeks and typed on his keyboard, but he muttered, "Are you trying to woo her yourself, Captain? Can't we even think about it? You're not even close to her league, Trevor." Captain aside, we still have Sean, and he's hot too, Jared teased. Richard didn't stop them as he was used to his team members' banter. He then ordered, "I want to see these criminals' files on my desk in half an hour." He then left. Trevor saw him off. Once Richard was gone, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Something's off with the captain. Did you guys smell a woman's perfume on him? Jared had a sensitive nose, and he could smell a lot of stuff most people couldn't. Hey, maybe Miss Myers hugged him after he cheered her up. Man, I'd love to be in his place. Women need a reliable guy when they're at their weakest. The captain's so lucky. Trevor kept talking while typing. The guy was a loudmouth, but he was also a technology genius, and a reliable one at that. I want to do something nice for once. Jared was working on another computer, and he smirked. What is it? So I watched the footage again, and I saw him giving that woman money. Does that count as prostitution? Yes. Trevor said. Reported. The cops are on their way. Yeah. Got back at him for Miss Myers. Nice. Trevor gave him a thumbs up. Richard went back to his room, which was right next to Angela's. He was surprised to see that her door was open. He frowned and went inside, but Angela was nowhere to be seen. He took his phone out and made a call. "Where is she?" "At the basketball court, Captain. She's crying. She needs you," Sean said happily. Richard hung up. He didn't plan on going to her. Richard was about to close the door, but he pulled his hand back and went to the basketball court. The lights shone on a slender woman on a bench. Her hair tumbled down her shoulder, and she looked like a damsel in distress. Angela heard the sound of footsteps, and she wiped her tears away as refused to let anyone see her in this state. When she saw who it was, she turned her head away. "You don't need to try to cheer me up," she said. "I'm not. I'm just telling you that your danger level has just gone up. I'll need to see your parents tomorrow and tell them what happened. I'll leave some guys behind to protect them." He stood 3 feet away from her and crossed his arms. He looked like a mountain, dependent and reliable. Angela turned around, her eyes red. "Please don't let anything happen to my dad and mom. I'll work with you. I won't run around or cause any trouble. It's our job." He was happy that she was starting to be cooperative. He had no time to take care of her, so he needed her to be in his vicinity. She was starting to feel cold, and she wanted to go back to her room. She heard squeaks when she was going past Richard, and she looked down, only to see a couple of mice run past her feet. A scream arced through the night, and Angela leaped into the air. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and her legs were locked around his waist so she wouldn't fall. She was hanging on him like a koala bar. Richard reflexively held her hips to keep her from falling down. The air froze for a few moments, and he asked, "How much longer are you doing this?" Only then did Angela realize she was hugging him. She coughed awkwardly and let go of his neck, then she jumped down. At the same time, she looked at him closely for the first time. He had a chiseled, handsome face. His brows were sharp, his eyes were deep-set, and his nose was aquiline. His lips were thin but sexy, and he had a perfect jawline that drew people's eyes down to his neck. He radiated manliness everywhere. He also had an aloof air about him, and his eyes seemed unfathomable. Richard left before she could finish staring, and she followed him, worried she might run into more mice. This was a dramatic day in her life. She went through a life-and-death situation and had her heart broken just in one day. Richard went to the Myers place the next morning. He was sitting on the sofa, facing the Myers couple. Richard told them what happened, and they were horrified. They couldn't believe their daughter was dragged into something so dangerous by chance. "Is she hurt, Mr. Lloyd?" Daphne asked quickly. She scratched her forehead, but otherwise she's well. "You can't see her for now, though. Maybe it'll last for 6 months. Maybe a year. Leave her to us. We'll take care of her," Richard said calmly. "We trust you. Please take care of our daughter, and sorry for the trouble." Gilbert was understanding. "She's not easy to get along with, so please bear with her. She's used to the nice life. Please forgive her if she did anything wrong." Daphne knew her daughter was a handful. "She'll work with me. Don't worry about it." "Good. I'll prepare her clothes. Please take them to her for me." Daphne then went upstairs. Gilbert looked at the young man before him. He commented, "I've seen you when you were a kid, back at your grandpa's house. Time flies." "Yeah. I remember you too, Mr. Myers. I heard you got engaged to Annie. Congrats." "Sorry I couldn't come. I had something to do." Richard nodded in understanding. He didn't want to talk about this too much. "Please take care of Angela. Her mother and I owe her a lot." We didn't take good care of her, and now we can't help her even when she's in trouble. Gilbert sighed. He felt really guilty for this. I'll do my best. Tell her we love her very much. Tell her to be brave. We'll help in the search as well. Of course, Mr. Myers. Richard nodded. Just then, his underling reported the progress of the search in the yard. They've dug up everywhere, but there were still no signs of the lipstick. The rainstorm that night might have washed it into the ditch, so they had to search underground now. It was a big search, but the lipstick was worth it, and they had to find it. It contained top-secret information. Thank you. I'm sorry for what Angela did. I can't believe she threw away something so important, and now she just made things 10 times harder for you, Gilbert apologized. She did something good, actually. She took the lipstick back for us and prevented a direct battle with the criminals. She also bought us time. Digging things up isn't hard, he explained. If it were not for Angela's switcheroo, the thieves would have completed their trade that night, and Richard and his men would have to face an even bigger danger. Gilbert felt a little better hearing that. So she did something good? Daphne came back with a luggage filled with clothes. She still couldn't accept that she had to be separated from her daughter at such short notice, and she sighed. This is her luggage, Mr. Lloyd. Can I call her before she leaves? Daphne asked. Richard shook his head. Sorry. She's under strict protection. She can't contact the outside world for now, not even her parents. All right, enough. Don't make this hard on him. What's important is Angela's safety. Gilbert patted his wife's shoulder. Daphne nodded and put that thought aside. Mr. and Mrs. Myers, please keep Angela's situation a secret. Don't tell anyone, not even your own family. Just tell them she's studying abroad, Richard told them. We'll do that. Since there was nothing else to say, he told his underling to take the luggage away while he went to have a look at the yard. He told the guys there to tell him if they found anything, as he needed to escort Angela to a secret base now. The Myers saw them off, and Gilbert said, I almost forgot. Richard is Annie's fiancé. He's a brilliant lad. Daphne looked surprised. So he's the guy your father arranged for Annie? Yep. Daphne thought Richard was great too. He was at least 1,000 times better than Dexter. At the same time, Dexter was in trouble. He was detained, since someone reported him on the suspicions of prostitution. The authorities had evidence, and he couldn't weasel his way out. He didn't expect that the woman whom he ran into was a repeated offender either. Dexter finally realized how powerful the Myers were, and he was scared. All his bridges were burned now that Angela knew who he really was. The first thing he would do after he got out of this place was to give Daphne the $1.5 million back. He didn't want to get into more trouble. He only dated Angela for her money, but over the last 2 years, he got to know her and her family. Her grandfather's family was filled with government officials, while her mother was a businesswoman, so she grew up. Daphne looked surprised. So he's the guy your father arranged for Annie? Yep. Daphne thought Richard was great too. He was at least 1,000 times better than Dexter. At the same time, Dexter was in trouble. He was detained, since someone reported him on the suspicions of prostitution. The authorities had evidence, and he couldn't weasel his way out. He didn't expect that the woman whom he ran into was a repeated offender either. Dexter finally realized how powerful the Myers were, and he was scared. All his bridges were burned now that Angela knew who he really was. The first thing he would do after he got out of this place was to give Daphne the $1.5 million back. He didn't want to get into more trouble. He only dated Angela for her money, but over the last 2 years, he got to know her and her family. Her grandfather's family was filled with government officials, while her mother was a businesswoman, so she grew up without love and companionship. She had everything she wanted in life, but her soul was barren. Because of that, Dexter created a lot of chance encounters overseas and portrayed himself as a gentle, caring man who took care of her every need. He made her fall for him through his actions. Angela fell for him in the end. Just when they were about to get married, Daphne found out and asked him out for a talk. Angela fought her family with him. She wanted to be with Dexter no matter what, and Dexter could see victory in front of him. However, Daphne offered him $1.5 million, and that made him waver. Still, his greed got the better of him, and he planned on getting all the Myers' wealth. In the end, his efforts were for nothing. He knew Angela well. She was not a weak woman. She just grew up with little to no love, but she was braver than other women. Angela was spacing out in the room. She spent most of her time studying and bettering herself in the past. There was no time to space out, but things were different now. She could take a break and space out. She didn't have to worry about her relationship anymore, and it was peaceful. She was suddenly reminded of something. Annie said she's engaged. I wonder what her fiancé looks like. They grew up together, and Annie would tell her anything in her life. Someone knocked on the door, and she opened it to find Richard standing outside. He said, "Pack up. We're leaving in 10 minutes. 10 minutes? That's too short. That's all the time you have. You're still coming with us even if you aren't finished," Richard said imperiously. Angela blinked. I feel like a soldier now. She nodded. Fine. I'll do my best. She got herself a bag and packed her important stuff up. She also packed her clothes and shoes, of course, then she looked in the mirror and tied her hair up. She looked at the time again. 2 minutes left. She opened the door and came out quickly with her bag. What greeted her were 3 off-road cars beside the basketball court. Mysterious. Angela came over, and Trevor opened the door for her happily. Come in, Miss Myers. Angela looked inside, and there was already somebody there, Richard. Angela got in the car without hesitation. She didn't buckle herself up after settling in, and Richard looked at her. Buckle up. Angela did as she was told. Trevor got in the car as well and turned around. I got good news for you, Miss Myers. Dexter's arrested. Angela looked at him in surprise. How did you know that? My friend found out he's involved in prostitution, so we snitched. Angela felt better after hearing that. Thanks for helping. No problem. Trevor was happy seeing her happy. The car drove out of the steel gates and headed for the highway, which was some distance away. Angela looked outside the window. She wondered where they were taking her, but she decided not to ask. It wasn't important. They could take her to the ends of the world, and she wouldn't care. Want a candy, Miss Myers? Trevor turned around and handed her a lollipop. Angela's eyes shone, and she took it. Thank you. What about you, Captain? Trevor asked Richard. He had been silent the whole time. No, Richard refused. Angela noticed that Trevor still had a lollipop in hand, so she took it happily. I'll take it for him. She took it and looked at Richard. He was still as silent as usual. This is gonna be a boring journey. She thought they would stop and have a meal, but the team kept going on and on. There was only bread and water in the car, and they would only stop to change drivers. Angela felt sore a while later, and she was sleepy. Her head would swing around when she was trying to sleep, causing her to feel uncomfortable and dizzy. Finally, she pleaded, Can I lean on you, Mr. Lloyd? Richard looked at the sleepy lady and adjusted his position. Angela moved to the center and leaned on his shoulder, and in a few seconds, she fell asleep. Trevor looked back and gave Richard a look that said, "Nice, Captain." The journey went on for more than 10 hours, and they came into the mountains. They kept going on for God knew how long, and right now, stars were already twinkling in the sky. Angela was jolted. Awake when the car bumped. She looked outside, but it was dark. Finally, she saw light coming from the top of a mountain, but they were dim. The car drove toward the mountain, and they entered a secret cave. The entrance wasn't big, but the insides were more than met the eye. It was filled with high-tech stuff, and it was exactly like those secret governmental departments she saw in the movies. They stopped the car, and Trevor opened the door for her. "We're here, Miss Myers. Come with me." Angela unbuckled herself and got out of the car. Her legs buckled, and she held the car's door right away. Trevor gave her time to adjust, and he led her somewhere. "Where are we, Trevor?" she whispered. "Sorry, but I can't tell you that. Just know that this will be your home for a while. It's a safe place." Trevor could keep a secret when it came to it. Angela stopped asking. She looked around and thought things were really exciting, though the environment wasn't the best. Her room was cramped too, and there was only a window in it. She blinked. "My bathroom is bigger than this room. Sorry, you have to stay in this coop. You can go back once things calm down, Miss Myers," he apologized. "It's all right. I can live anywhere." She chuckled before she asked, "So, where's the bathroom?" "Go straight and turn left. There's a public bathroom and restroom there." "It's public?" Angela's eyes widened further. "Wow. This place is tougher than I imagined. The captain has his own bathroom. You can use it if you want. Just ask for his permission. Only people with his rank get their own bathrooms here." Trevor smiled. Angela blinked. "I hope he'll let me use his bathroom. I'm so not used to public ones." "So where's Mr. Lloyd's room?" "Just turn right. It's the 5th room from here." "Thanks." She sat on the bed. Angela thought she smelled like gas after staying in the car for a day. It was unacceptable for a misophobe like her. "I gotta see if Richard will let me use his bathroom." She opened the closet and noticed a lot of clothes in there. Daphne had packed a ton of clothes for her, and all of them were expensive. There were even a few silk pajamas inside. She picked some casual clothes and hung the rest of her luggage in the closet, then she decided to go to Richard. Angela went down the corridor and knocked on the 5th room's door. She heard footsteps coming from within before someone opened the door. Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw him. Richard was wearing nothing but a pair of boxers, and his towel hung around his neck. Beads of water dripped down his hair, and he was naked from the waist up. His collarbone looked sharp, his chest was puffy, and his abs were chiseled. There were a few scars on them, but he looked perfectly muscular. "He's better than most models." Angela stared at him brazenly for a long time. He frowned in the end. "Do you need anything?" Can I use your bathroom?" she asked. Richard thought about it for a few moments and moved aside. He agreed to it. Angela went inside. The room smelled like men, causing her heart to skip a beat and her to blush. His room wasn't big, but he had a small living room and a regular bathroom. There was also a queen-sized bed too. It was far better than her room. What caught her eye was the tall bookshelf in the living room. It was filled with books, and judging from their titles, she could see that this room was made for him. He wasn't here for a short stay. What kind of rank does he have? Why does he get to live in a room like this? She had a lot of questions, but she went to the bathroom instead. It still had a little steam inside, and it smelled like Richard. Angela used his slippers and washed herself with his shampoo and body wash. Only the towel and face wash were hers. Richard changed into a casual shirt and was reading on the couch. He was interested in this philosophy of psychology book, but for some reason, the sound of running water in the bathroom distracted him as he couldn't focus on the book. Angela felt shy taking a shower in his bathroom for some reason. The air was filled with his scent, and she felt hotter with every passing moment. She felt lucky that she never had sex with Dexter. She didn't mind it back when she was in love with him, but she was thankful that Dexter kept refusing because she would have had sex with someone who was just using her. According to Dexter, he wanted to save sex for marriage. She thought he must really love her to keep his urges under check. However, now she thought he must be hiding something from her. Maybe he has STDs. Thank God I didn't have sex with him. Angela washed her hair. She loved being clean, so she bathed and washed her hair almost every day. She came out all changed, and her hair was covered in her towel. Her face was pink from the steam, highlighting her beauty. Her wet hair only made her face look smaller, and her features more striking. "Do you have a hairdryer?" she asked Richard. Richard frowned. It's already midnight. Did she have to wash her hair at this hour? No, he answered curtly. So who has one? Angela kept asking. We don't have hairdryers here, Richard said, sounding annoyed. Angela's mind was blown. What? How can I dry my hair without a hairdryer? It's late, and I don't have the sun to help me. My hair's gonna smell if I don't dry it. Please, can you get me a hairdryer? Please? She sat down beside him and looked at him with an unspoken plea in her eyes. Richard could smell her scent the moment she approached him, and he held his breath and moved to the side. Angela froze for a few moments. Do I smell? He looks disgusted. She raised her arm and smelled herself. I smell like body wash. I made sure I cleaned myself. Please, Mr. Lloyd. I can't go to bed with wet hair. I'm going to wake up with a headache. You don't want that to happen, do you? It'll be trouble, she kept persuading. Richard closed the book and looked at her. He chided, you wouldn't have washed your head if you just thought about it a little. What? I couldn't have known you guys don't have any hairdryers. That's not my fault. She looked down, frustrated and speechless. Richard put his book down and left his room. Angela blinked. She had a feeling he was getting a hairdryer for her. She liked staying in his room compared to her little coop. She picked a few books from his bookshelf while he was gone. Wow, he reads complex books. Math, physics, philosophy, and even psychology? He has everything. Never thought he'd love books. I thought he liked weapons more. Angela read one of the books to pass the time. Eventually, Richard came back with a hairdryer, much to her delight. Thanks, Mr. Lloyd. Richard handed it to her and went back to his book, while Angela went into the bathroom to dry her hair. It felt great. After she came out from the bathroom, she asked, So where did you get this? She was smiling. I borrowed it, Richard said. Angela's smile froze. At this hour? Did he ask a lady for this? Must have been awkward for him. Thanks. She put the hairdryer down. Can you get me one next time? Richard looked up. Angela's fluffy and slightly messy hair tumbled down to her waist. It covered her face, and she looked like a girl who was about to make out with her boyfriend. Things were starting to get a little hot for a certain someone.
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.